In this lesson, we learn how to set Arnold as our render engine, and we find out where are all the related Arnold for Cinema 4D or C4D2A options inside Cinema 4D. First off, in order to set Arnold as your render engine, you need to go to your render setting, and here using this drop down, you can choose Arnold to be your render engine. Now, if you click on Arnold Render, you can see all the render settings that Arnold provides. You have your main tab. Here you can find the most important Arnold render settings, including sampling and ray depths that we use in order to control the quality of our render. Then you have environment tab. Here you can define background for your scene or define atmospheric effects like atmosphere, volume, and fog. Then we have this motion blur tab or rollout. Here you can enable or disable motion blur and control the motion blur related options. We have this texture, color manager, and advanced rollouts to control some additional options as well. We have our system tab. Here you control stuff like the bucket size and scanning method, how IPR or interactive preview rendering works, and finally some search path and licensing settings. Then we have our AOVs tab, our arbitrary output variables. If you're familiar with multi-pass rendering in Cinema 4D or V-Ray, or for example channels in Maxwell Render, AOVs or arbitrary output variables is the term Arnold uses for multi-pass rendering. We learn everything you need to know about AOVs later on in the course. Then there is this diagnostic tab. Here you can generate a log reporting all the steps needed to render an image, as well as any warnings and errors encountered by the render. Down here we have this future override rollout. You can use these switches to enable or disable some of the rendering features. Let me close this window. Then if you go to the plugin menu and come down to C4D2A, here we have some objects and options. For example, you can create Arnold cameras, Arnold lights, Arnold sky, procedurals, volume, driver, and AOV. We have Arnold TP groups to use with thinking particles. You can start IPR and interactively preview your render. You can export as files and manage .tx versions of your textures using TX Manager. Using flush caches option, you can flush textures or light caches. You can use this material menu to create a new Arnold shader network, for example, or to convert C4D materials to Arnold shaders and some other self-explanatory options. And finally, you can find some help and licensing related options in the help menu. Next, we have these Arnold tags. If I create a cube, for example, here and right click on the cube in the object manager and go to the C4D2A tags, you can see we have 6 tags: the Arnold parameter tag, Arnold mesh light, Arnold mesh particles, Arnold mesh volume, Arnold object mask, and Arnold custom AOV. I will be discussing these tags thoroughly later on. Now, if you go to the material manager and click on this create then shader, here you can find Arnold shader network editor, which allows you to connect nodes and shaders in order to develop shader networks. Let me close this window. Now if you click on this create menu, you can find this Arnold section, and here you can create different shaders directly without having to open up Arnold shader network editor. Here you can see different types of shaders like standard surface, standard hair, and much more. We discussed these shaders later on as well. So in this lesson, we learned how to set Arnold as our render engine and where to find Arnold inside Cinema 4D. In the next lesson, we go through the general workflow when working with C4D2A. See you there.